This is definitely the most mind-bending Japanese horror film recently. The Exit 8 is adapted from the hugely popular horror game of the same name released in 2023. It does not rely on traditional jump scares or violent elements, but instead uses psychological suggestion and atmospheric tension to ignite fear deep inside the audience. Just like the game, the film begins in a first-person perspective, with Kazunari scrolling through his phone on the way to work. Most of the content is cosmetic surgery ads and job postings, but mixed in is a strange, short piece of news. Scientists had successfully transplanted a human ear onto the back of a mouse. Everyone should remember these headlines quickly because they are closely tied to what happens later. Suddenly, the piercing cry of a baby cuts through the air as a weary-looking office worker angrily complains to a mother holding her child, accusing her of being irresponsible for bringing a baby on the subway during rush hour, saying the crying was driving him insane. The subway slowly pulls into Osaka Station and Kazunari rushes off, but just then his phone rings. It is his ex-girlfriend. On the other end, her voice is faint. She tells Kazunari she is at the hospital, unsure whether to keep the baby, and wants to hear his opinion. Kazunari is at a loss for words. The pressure squeezes his throat like an invisible hand. His breath becomes strained, and he frantically digs out his asthma inhaler, pressing it into his mouth and taking several deep breaths. His ex-girlfriend reassures him not to stress too much, saying she has already made her decision, but the signal begins to break up, her words fragmenting until the call cuts out completely, leaving Kazunari without hearing a single clear sentence. He raises his head and suddenly realizes he is standing in an unfamiliar passageway, with the sign clearly pointing toward Exit 8. Coming his way is a man with a briefcase and an indifferent expression. They brush past each other, and Kazunari continues forward. After turning a corner with some lockers and a photo booth, he notices a sign on the wall reading Exit 0, but he pays little attention to it. Not far ahead, that same man appears again. The same clothes, the same walk, the same blank face. Doubt rises in Kazunari's mind, but he keeps walking. Yet when he turns another corner, the exact same scene repeats for the third time. The same corridor, the same man approaching. He finally stops, unease flooding him as he looks up at the overhead sign, then back at the endlessly looping man. The footsteps suddenly stop, and when Kazunari instinctively turns around, the man is standing right behind him, with an unnerving, twisted smile spread across his face. Kazunari panics, fleeing in terror until he is sure the man is not following, finally catching his breath. But when he turned the corner of the corridor again, that familiar passage appeared before him once more, and the man calmly walked toward him again. Kazunari completely breaks down. Without thinking, he turns and runs back. Even though the sign still points to Exit 0, he finds himself back in the passageway leading to Exit 8. The expressionless man with the briefcase appears yet again, as if programmed to do so. After letting him pass, Kazunari tries every door along the corridor, but each one is locked tight, refusing to budge. Nearly exhausted, he notices red liquid slowly seeping from beneath a poster on the opposite wall. The next moment, blood begins to drip endlessly from the ceiling above. Terrified by this horrifying scene, Kazunari turns and runs, but comes to an abrupt halt at the corner. The man is standing motionless, staring down at his phone screen, frozen as if time itself had stopped. At that moment, Kazunari realizes the sign has changed from 0 to 1, and beside it, a white notice clearly lists 4 rules. Do not miss any abnormal phenomenon. If you find an abnormal phenomenon, immediately turn back. If you do not see an abnormal phenomenon, do not retrace your steps. Proceed to Exit 8 to escape. Kazunari commits these 4 rules firmly to memory and heads into the next corridor. This time, the ceiling does not drip blood, and the man does not respond at all to Kazunari's questions, moving like a soulless machine. Kazunari scans the surroundings carefully, finding nothing unusual, but fails to notice that the overhead lights, which should be aligned, are now arranged in chaotic disorder. Because he missed this detail when he turns the corner, the sign changes back from 1 to 0. Before entering the new corridor, Kazunari pulls out his phone, determined to record everything as evidence. He photographs the lockers, the photo booth, even the trash on the floor at the corner. This time, the sign finally changes from 0 to 1. Kazunari believes he has grasped the rules, but when he checks his phone, every photo has turned distorted and grotesque, useless as reference. He has no choice but to rely solely on memory to recall each detail of the passages. Just then, the man's footsteps suddenly vanish again. Kazunari whips his head around and finds the man standing behind him, wearing that same eerie smile. Recognizing this as an abnormal phenomenon, he quickly follows the rule and retraces his steps. But unexpectedly, the man starts following him, step by step, closing in. Panicked, Kazunari runs back around the corner, and when he turns again, the man has disappeared, while the sign has shifted from 1 to 2. This time, Kazunari memorizes every detail carefully, but as he nears the end of the corridor, a baby's cry echoes from inside one of the lockers. Curious, he opens it, only to find it completely empty. Just as he thinks it might be his imagination, all the lockers in front of him light up with red lights simultaneously. The baby's cries spill out from every locker, intertwining into a horrifying sound. It is clearly another abnormal phenomenon, and Kazunari bolts back the way he came. As soon as he turns the corner, the crying stops instantly, and the sign changes from 2 to 3. In the next corridor, Kazunari carefully checked the posters and several doors, finding no abnormalities. But just as he reached for his asthma inhaler to catch his breath, he suddenly sensed something was wrong. The pair of eyes on the surveillance camera sign on the wall slowly shifted with his movements, and realizing this was another abnormal phenomenon, Kazunari quickly turned back. Sure enough, the number on the sign changed from 3 to 4. In the following corridor, everything seemed normal, and Kazunari passed smoothly, the exit sign jumping from 4 to 5. Entering the new corridor, his phone suddenly rang. It was his ex-girlfriend calling, asking anxiously where he was. Kazunari hurried forward while telling her he was trapped inside a subway passage, promising he would find the exit as soon as possible to meet her. But just as he neared the end of the corridor, a figure eerily resembling his ex-girlfriend appeared silently behind him. Another clear abnormality. Only when Kazunari noticed the exit number flicker from 5 back to 0 did he realize it had been a trap. Dragging his weary steps, he entered the next corridor, where the entire passage was suddenly shrouded in a dim yellow glow, completely different from the previous lighting. He immediately judged it as abnormal and decisively turned back. In the next corridor, he saw a lone little boy standing still. By now, Kazunari was deeply trapped in this endless looping labyrinth of corridors, where repeated sights and encounters circled endlessly, creating an almost hypnotic effect that eroded his judgment. Because he chose to turn back, the sign once again reset to 0, which meant Kazunari's judgment had been wrong. The boy was not an abnormality. When Kazunari returned, he saw the boy pointing toward the man who kept appearing again and again. As the man turned a corner and left their sight, he did not pause to check his phone like before, but instead rushed excitedly toward the sign marked 4. He took the boy's hand and led him into the next corridor, where a schoolgirl in uniform appeared from the other side. The man carefully inspected the posters and the iron door on the wall, finding no abnormalities, then continued on with the boy toward the corner. Worried he might have missed something, he lowered his head to ask the boy for advice, but the boy remained silent. Helpless, the man forced a smile, assuring the boy that he would definitely lead him out of here. The sign now showed 5, which meant only 3 more corridors to escape this strange maze. In the next passage, the man was carefully counting the number of posters when the girl's voice suddenly came from behind, asking if he was lost. She smiled and said she was lost too, asking if she could leave with them. While the man was checking a nearby door, the girl suddenly asked if they were here because they had died, if they were being punished for something they had done, condemned to this hell. She paused, then whispered the same words again.
毎日夕日詰めの電車乗って会社行って同じこと繰り返してそっちの方が地獄みたいで
The man was at a loss for words, and the girl repeated her question word for word before freezing completely, unresponsive no matter how much he called to her. Her voice then twisted into a distorted, uncanny tone, terrifying the man, who immediately grabbed the boy's hand and fled. They sprinted until they reached exit 6, only 2 corridors left before freedom. After confirming that nothing had changed inside, the boy suddenly stopped in front of an iron door. But the man, eager to leave, pulled him forward without noticing that the handle was oddly placed in the center of the door. This was clearly another abnormal phenomenon. Because of this mistake, all the man's efforts were wiped away, and they were mercilessly reset back to exit 0. In anger, the man slammed his briefcase on the ground, shouting at the sign in frustration and despair. In the next corridor, a staircase leading upward suddenly appeared before him, and the man rushed forward, thinking he had finally reached the end. But the boy froze before the steps, refusing to move no matter how hard the man pulled him. Losing patience, the man shoved the boy aside, scraping his cheek against the rough floor and leaving a streak of blood. Seeing this, the man softened, crouching down to invite the boy to leave together. But the boy only stared at him in silence. In the end, the man gave up, abandoning the boy and climbing the stairs alone, vanishing into a blinding white light. The boy quietly got up, turned around, and walked back into the previous corridor. At this moment, the sign on the wall changed to 1, proving that the staircase just now was indeed an abnormal phenomenon. In the next corridor, the boy once again encountered the man, but by now he was expressionless, repeating the same motion of stopping at the corner and lowering his head to his phone, unchanged no matter how the boy tried to pull him. Just then, the boy heard a piercing scream from ahead. Terrified, he quickly fled back to the previous passage. Soon after, a confused man appeared before him. It was Kazunari, the one who had been lost from the start. When Kazunari mistook the boy for an abnormality and turned back, the boy quickly chased after him. Kazunari realized his mistake only when the sign changed, proving the boy was real and not an abnormal phenomenon. The boy then led Kazunari forward, pointing toward the man, but Kazunari whispered that the man was no longer human. Just as Kazunari carefully checked the corridor and, finding no abnormalities, continued forward, he failed to notice that the boy had discovered one. The back of the overhead sign was covered with the word, "Return." The boy tried to warn him, but Kazunari had already stepped into the next corridor. The sign flipped back to 0, and the two were once again returned to the beginning. The Exit 8 reveals a psychological horror world hidden beneath an ordinary surface, combining the mechanics of Spot the Difference games with an infinite looping liminal space to create a new kind of horror experience. The most unsettling fear hides within the environments we know best, and the true terror is not the abnormalities themselves, but realizing that we can never fully trust our own perception. Will Kazunari and the boy find a way to escape this endless looping maze together?